investors that are, trying to get their feet wet, but you bang down one deal, two deals, then that sets you up for really being able to take over just with your equity position.
Right. So this is the Thai Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode 129. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Thai Millionaire, founder and director of the Thai Capital Investment Club. We have well over 300 members on the stock side, about 100 members on the real estate side, and we also have some members on that barbershop project people keep seeing us talking about. So thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors. We want people to learn that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. With us today, we have Mr. Austin Smith. He is a full-time real estate agent. He has built a six-figure real estate agent business. He also owns 6 doors, and he has 3 on the way. And he has a wealth of real estate knowledge because he has his own podcast. And he has a superpower-packed lineup on his podcast. So a lot of information coming from this brother. Welcome to the show, man.
No, I appreciate you having me on. And it's kind of serendipity that now the roles have reversed. So I really appreciate you taking the time and, just extending back, lifting one up. And we continue to get the ground going.
Absolutely. So we always start with this question. We always want to know what life was like growing up. So can you talk to us about what that looked like for you?
Yeah. So interesting enough, I don't have like the rag to riches story or like that was born in like extreme poverty or anything like that. Went to a decent middle school, decent high school, decent college. And, that was pretty much the extent of just my education. So some formal education. And, but I knew that obviously there was a lot more. There's a lot more to explore there. And I got to college, studied finance, and originally I was trading Forex. So it's funny because now I see all these individuals that are now trading Forex. I did not see as many people that were trading Forex back in the day. And long story short, completely failed at that and graduated, thought I was going to go straight to Wall Street right after. And that didn't happen. Sally Mae started knocking on my door like, congrats, but now it's time. So had to find something. And for the record, I did have a felony that was on my record. So I've had jobs that, especially in the field of finance and especially under FINRA, you have a felony, that's pretty much it. You can't get any of your licenses. You can't get, it's a very hard struggle. And not to say that it was anything, crazy, but the certain circumstances that I was in led me to that particular situation. But long story short, so I was going after finance jobs. I had, job interviews in the mortgage industry, in life insurance, personal banking, things like that. I've had people accept me, give me an offer, and then find out about my background and then take the offer away from me. So that happened multiple times. So luckily I was able to find a job that had me in a warehouse, and I was working for a company that manufactures LED lighting products, which is a pretty big industry, but only if you are a product engineer, if you can develop those products. That's the only way your career can advance. So I was doing more customer service, not so much sales, but I realized I was making, maybe $39,000 after college. And I just knew that there was more. I just had to figure out, where. So long story short, I ended up in real estate. And, I was talking to my wife about it for a while. And she's like, well, just make the plunge. And she had actually moved from LA and left everything. And as soon as she finished college, came right over to New York. So she went from one coast to another. And that's one thing that I admire. So I was like, I never really took a major risk. So long story short, quit my job, went into the business full time. And the rest is history.
So, man, in the beginning of your real estate agent career, how did you get to the point where you could get your first deal and scale it to a successful company?
So interesting question. So right off the bat, I knew I had literally maybe about a year's worth of experience of party promoting while I was at school at campus. And I was never good at, I never built anything crazy out of it. But one thing I did notice is that just my introduction to marketing just promote and blast. Like the more people see the message, the better. Right. That is it. Your job is every time you wake up, everybody in your database, your spirit influence needs to know what you do. So I knew I had that down pat. And it was just the fact that I knew that, you'd be surprised. Obviously, once you're back against the wall, you figure some things out. So you change. And then once you change, subconsciously, those things start to attract to you rather than you trying to go chase after those things. Right. So I knew once I quit, I had maybe about $15,000 in the bank. And I knew it was going to be a lot to get the business up and running. But long story short, I took it right back to the promoter days, and literally everybody in my phone, they got a message from me. Everybody on LinkedIn. I mean, these social media platforms, they're not like they're secondary databases. Like they don't have to be a CRM, but they can definitely there are databases.
Yeah.
So constantly promoting that message, I need to do a lot better job. So that's kind of one of the goals for 2020, just content blast, because I love what you're doing. Like just every time there's something out there that's useful, and it gets people coming back. Like it's not like you're posting dry content. Like it's stuff that people can consume and always learn something. Like just one thing or one tidbit that's like, like good point. But that's just who I was. So reached out to everybody, and then you slowly start to promote yourself. People see that. And then it just takes that one person to start your career off. And, it's, hey, I need, can you help me buy a house? You get to it, you get that first deal, you get that first check. And then it's just like, all right, locked in.
Yeah. I feel like in a lot of ways it could have helped that you'd exhausted all the other options out there to the point where now it's like, hey, this is what I got. This is my opportunity. Let me make the most of that opportunity.
It's so important because like the only difference between where people are and where they say they're going to go is the actions in between. That's literally it. So in order for you to create that option, that action, there has to be some type of switch in the brain, right? So you have strong, compelling reasons where it's like, if I don't do this, like then I give up on everything, and that's more than enough of a compelling reason. But if you're doing comfortable already and you're thinking about making the switch, you may be a little bit reluctant because you're comfortable in your current situation. But removing all those obstacles, which it's so key. It's so key. It's very, very important. And the only reason why you'd be surprised again how the human brain itself, how it can adapt to whatever situation that's kind of put in front of it, and you'd be surprised like the universe just adapts to it. It's that simple.
Right. So you have a podcast we mentioned. I think it has about like 40 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to start that podcast, and how have you been able to get such successful guests on the show?
Awesome question. So I started the podcast just off of establishing my own platform and a branding marketing vehicle that can serve its purpose by serving up great info that people can take with them, apply, and actually change something. And honestly, it wasn't until I got into the business and I really started to see like the power of like this real estate business, which is like, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of money that moves around in here. And it's like, you kind of want to bring that back. You kind of like, you want to tell your friends like, yo, look what I found. Like, I got to check this out. And the podcast gave you that opportunity to do that on a mass scale. As far as getting guests, I've realized that the true business people and the true individuals that are looking to build something bigger than just like sales or their income will always look for the opportunity to give back, right? Because they understand, most importantly, what it was like to be in that same situation of starting something that they never started and then rocking it out from there. So when I first started the podcast, the Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast, shameless plug. When I originally started the podcast, I knew one thing and one thing only. I started and I'm like, where am I going to get the amazing guests for? Like, where am I going to get the amazing guests? I got to find a way to get. And the more that I kept thinking about it is the more that I realized if I don't move, nothing's going to happen. So start anywhere. I started with, the people that I knew in my personal network. I brought my wife on to talk about investing in relationships, like investing with your partner. I brought on, the person that I knew just just did well in the business. And then from there, I landed, I think Will Roundtree was like the first big guest that I had a major following with. And then it started to snowball from there. There comes, you, Rashana, and Panji was on the show as well. And
Julian Gordon too.
Yeah. And Isaac Grace was on there as well, Ramel. And they've been really helpful just giving back in that particular situation. And then especially the Budgetnista, which I didn't know, I know she's running around like crazy, but it was just love to extend the hand back, which helps. So, yeah.
The crazy part about podcasting is kind of a representation of group economics where it looks like we help each other. So I help you, you help me. People get value out of the content. We also make money out of the content. We also get education out of the content. We also get networking out of the content.
Right.
Like podcasting is so layered. It's kind of like right. It's kind of like what Earn Your Leisure said. He's like, when you have a podcast, you're networking with the bosses. And so then it's like, now you're networking like, okay, well, I can hit up John Daly about this, or I can hit up this guy over here about this. And it by giving and by doing and by kind of being selfless, you actually end up promoting yourself and growing yourself. And then also what you do is you kind of create that resume. And so now people are looking at you and like, oh, he's had this person on the podcast, this person on the podcast. I sent somebody my business page the other day and they're like, oh man, I got to find out about what you do. And so like you're creating, it's like a CV. Like a CV is it's an index of everything you've done, not an index of just where you worked and what your education is. It's like, okay, well, what's your body of work look like? And that's another reason why podcasting is important.
And I even think just for everybody that listens to the various podcasts, like it gives you an opportunity to listen to multiple bosses and get different bosses' input. You know what I mean? Because one thing that you heard from one particular podcast, you might hear it a certain way. You can hear that same concept on another podcast and it'll resonate with you on that podcast than it did the other. And then vice versa. Right. So, and it's crazy because like all the podcasters listen to a ton of other podcasts, and that's where we kind of get the inspiration. That's where we kind of get like, oh, I like how he did this, like, and it all helps build while continuously providing the listeners and those audience with just, grade A substance and stuff that they can take and really change their lives with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in regard to real estate, aside from sales, what did your first investment deal look like?
So we in a funny investment story. So, and I put a lot of emphasis on working with a partner because it wouldn't have got done, right? So like, if you don't have the. So I'm on a 1099. So when you first start in real estate, the only thing or the only regret I have is that I probably would have bought a house first and then quit my job and jumped into the business. Because I forgot that.
You did what? You bought a house and quit your job?
No, so I was going to. I wish I did. So I wish I bought my house first and then closed on that house and then quit my job after. And the only reason why, because once it's closed, like that's that. Like you can lose your job after, whatever. But it was just the fact that once I went into being an independent contractor, I wasn't as loan worthy throughout my first year, 2 years. And of course, this property pops up and I'll never forget, that was in my second year. I haven't even started really making the money that I'm making now. And this property pops up and I had already helped a few people on the multi-end just really make crazy money. So I'm like, okay, I know how to do this. So I got to do this for myself. And I was talking about it already. So now practice what you preach. So this property pops up and I'm looking at it and it's like, okay, this makes perfect sense. So I'm telling wifey about it and she's like, all right, well, make the move. And I'm like, I had just got paid from a recent closing and that was all the money that I had, right? And basically, as soon as I got that check, I basically put it right back up into a property, major risk. And we bought a 3-family. We bought a 2-family, stayed in the basement, finished the basement, stayed in the basement, rented out the other 2 units.
I like it. So you turned a duplex into a 3-family, basically.
Exactly. So, and we used the FHA 203K. we put it in her name first. Now, that's why I say, like, it's very important for you to have a partner. Mine just happens to be my wife. And for you, whatever you lack, somebody else has. So I had the knowledge, the ability to put the deal together, to be able to create the terms that I needed to create a worthy investment. And wifey basically had the credit, or we both had awesome credit. She had the ability, she had the W2. So she was able to get the loan. So we move in, rent out the other 2 units. We bought at a great time over here in North New Jersey, and the market took off. It's worth another 100 grand since we bought it. So it was a really good deal.
So don't leave that deal, because we got to talk about the numbers, because I feel like, you made 100 grand in equity, but I'm pretty sure that you were either cash flowing or you at least knocked out the mortgage. So can you talk to us about how much the loan was, how much the rehab was, all that stuff?
We're going to talk about it all. So right off the bat, house was 235. House was 235. We used the FHA 203K. So we did 2 things. One, we rolled in our concession. We rolled in our closing costs of $10,000. So that took the total purchase price to $245. And then we took $20,000 and used that for the renovations to finish off the basement. Right. Plus some money out of pocket, because with the FHA 203K, whatever your purchase price and your rehab is, that total number has to be appraised for by the bank. Right. So my all-in numbers at 265, and I knew that the house with a finished basement would not appraise for above 265. So even with me getting a quote of say $25,000 for the basement, I knew I can only take $20,000 as far as the 203K money, and then we just paid the remaining out of pocket. So all in $265,000, right? We paid 3.5% of that. I got my calculator. So it was $9,000, $9,275, right, out of pocket for this asset. But wait, there's more. The interesting part about it is that I represented her as an agent. So I got a commission check out of that, rightfully so. So now at that point, that brought it was about that commission check was maybe about $5,200 or something like that. So that brought it was about $4,000 that we were all in. $4,000. Right off the back, especially when you close on a property, you try to close at the beginning of the month. If you close at the beginning of the month, then so if you close on say December the 1st, your next mortgage payment isn't due until February the 1st. So you have enough time to get tenants in there December, January, where you're doing straight profit, and now your mortgage doesn't kick in until February. So with that particular property, it was 3 bedrooms on the first floor, and then 4 bedrooms in the second unit. And 1,400 is coming on the first floor, 1,600 is coming on the second floor.
Wow.
So yeah, beautiful rents. So $3,000. So right off the bat, we already made our money back and a little bit more. So now we're basically into the deal scot-free. It's cash flowing, it's got equity, it's sitting, it's chilling. We buy so those are the numbers. So lo and behold, just to run through, the mortgage is 20, we just refinanced too. It's about 2098. So since then, 2098, and then the first floor is getting 1,450. I'm sorry, 1,400. Second floor is at 1,650, and then the basement is at 600.
Oh, so you moved.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So you're still cash flowing about $1,000 a month?
Still cash flowing about $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm.
After expenses, insurance, taxes, all that stuff.
No, it's doing well. I'm sorry. So sorry. We're in that one. We're in the first unit of that one. The second unit in the basement are renting out. My other property is the one that's also cash flowing.
Got it. Yeah. So that's interesting, because a lot of people, when they think of buying a house as an investment, they want to be all in for 75% of the ARV. Whereas in your situation, you were all in at about what the ARV was.
right? I don't. It's an interesting topic. It's a great debate, right? But one, we're buying at the top of the market, so especially with a 2 or 3K loan, I wasn't concerned with the equity buying because I didn't need those parameters aren't as strict versus hard money lending or private lending or when other investors are coming in.
Right.
With personal loans, you go to the bank, you say, hey, I need this much. They say, okay, you put this down and then here's your loan. And then you're just factoring what you're putting in versus what you're putting out or what's coming out of the property. So as far as equity and appreciation, not to say I don't care about it. I do care about it, but it's an icing on the cake. I only care about the cash flow, what's coming in versus what I'm putting out. Again, when it comes down to uh, expanding and accelerating the portfolio, yes, participating where I'm using hard money, private lending, and stuff like that. That will be a necessity, no problem. So I'll know the equity will be in those particular deals. But I'm just talking about while I'm doing that, we're trying to get use out of the first homeowner's down payment loan 4 times. That's the goal. So that way, and how is because you can always upgrade as long as there's some type of upgrade. And what I mean by that is we bought the first 2 properties FHA. We refinanced the first one into conventional. We're getting ready to refinance the other one into a conventional loan. You can go, and because, again, partnership, we have our properties separate. So if one property is in her name, the other property is in my name, right? So we did that for specific reasons. So now the next 2 properties, one will be in her name and the other one will be in my name. And you will be able to go after another FHA loan as long as there's some type of upgrade. You got to be able to convince the underwriter that there's some type of upgrade, meaning you're going to a better school district, you're moving into a more renovated property, your new property is a lot more bigger, has a lot more features, amenities, things like that. Now, it's not to say that you can just walk into any situation and just demand another FHA loan, but just from my talks with my particular lenders, it seems like it won't be a problem at all as long as I meet those guaranteed criteria.
Yeah.
If things change, we'll adjust. But because I know I will always, without a doubt, be able to participate in in extremely distressed rehab deals and things like that. There's not going to be another time where I can get 3.5% down funding. And I talk about, like, could you imagine if Google, Apple, Cash Money Records, like, could you imagine if they put these companies up for 3.5%? Like, it's, you know what I mean? To be able to control that, to have that leverage could be beneficial. So that way, and again, that's the only reason why I focus on the cash flow, because yes, the market's going to drop, the market's going to go up. But if I'm buying at different points that I know I'm dollar cost averaging on those and buying right with the equity, will be all right.
The beauty in all of this is either way you still live rent free, mortgage free, because you're house hacking your primary residence. And so at this point, you're just kind of playing real estate for fun. You're like, how much more can we make? You're not playing real estate for your survival anymore. And I think that's so key. A lot of people, before we kind of got this knowledge of house hacking and buying it and renting it out, we would do multifamilies on the opposite end. We would go live in somebody else's multifamily, be their tenant, paying them rent. And you still kind of are in the same situation. You still got your 3 bedrooms, your 2 baths, your whatsoever. You still have roommates upstairs or neighbors upstairs and downstairs. But we flipped it. We flipped it and we've taken the more empowered stance of being the owner. And now your whole world is opened up. I think that's so dope. So dope. Hey, equity, man. It's crazy.
And then sitting there. So between that and the other property is about $200,000 worth. And, just that's the beauty of equity. And one, like when you're buying in emerging markets, when you're buying on fringe markets, that's what happens. The appreciation is going to take care of itself, right? In the long run, because as long as we keep having babies, whether planned or not planned or whatever the case, like somebody's going to have to find a place to live. And even during a recession, when everybody loses their job and everything like that, everybody's going to lose people are going to lose their jobs, unfortunately. But no one's going to lose their pride of now sleeping outside on the park bench. Like they still have to go somewhere. You know what I mean? Like you still have to live somewhere. So, that's the beauty, that's the beauty of it. And it gives me options, whether we're not going to sell, but if we want to sell, we can sell, collect 200,000 cash free, tax free, just
Tax
because of
free.
the tax free. Like, and it wasn't until I got into the business, just understanding just taxes in general. It's the American economy, unfortunately, does not favor the employee. Like, they favor businesses. And it's crazy because I'm looking at, just the numbers of just, deductions and what we're able to take off. I can make the same amount as an employee, but then pay less in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, it gives you some flexibility. And again, this is no shame to anybody that's an employee or anything like that. Like, get your paper however you need to get your paper. It's just the fact that really, or putting that earned income into tax shielding vehicles is the end game, is what I'm referring to. Like, learning where to put that money.
One of the dopest things that I also heard in your first deal is how your experience as a realtor allowed you to put together a really, really good deal for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you realize that, but I heard you like, oh, I could do this and I could just flip that into this. And I could roll. Like, if you experience a bunch of other real estate transactions for somebody else, you're just getting game. You're just hearing how they did it a different way that might have made sense. And so when you come to that closing table or when you put together the deal, you're not just taking whatever the lender says. You're not just taking whatever the lender says. You're not just taking whatever the seller says. Because ultimately, they're going to tell you what's most sometimes advantageous for them and not for you.
Right.
And then you end up getting after. You're like, damn, I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't even know I could position that way. So there's a lot of value in doing the work that paid off in your deal. I think, honestly, just getting the deal that you got, where you got it with the potential appreciation, that's also kind of plays into your experience as a realtor. So there's a lot of value in the work, not just in reading and podcasts, but getting out there and just grinding through it, that real life stuff.
It's, for anybody that's looking to either break into like their specific markets or another market or anything like that, it just came down to one thing, like know your numbers, right? Like know your numbers. You don't have to crazily know the territory. You don't have to crazily know the area. But if you know your numbers, you can find people that live in the area. You can find people to bounce ideas, like, how's this street? They'll tell you straight up, no, not this street, this street, this is a block by block situation. Like, when you have people, especially with our networks and everybody that we went to school with and grown up with all the past, everybody's moved all over the country. Like, we have somebody in every, every state. Not to mention the power that the podcast and connections that people have made off of that. So it's like now we have this entire database where we now, especially with the technology, we have eyes and ears everywhere. So, that it played a major part, being in the trenches, learning the business, learning how to put a transaction together. But even so, if not, that's what an expert agent is supposed to do for their clients, for the people that don't know, and then breaking it down for them. So that's why, my niche is working with investors and those looking to take their FHA and create, essentially an amazing asset that they can take, wherever for only 3.5% down. So I'm a big advocate on that because I think it's one of the most misunderstood and most unused loan product, especially because people are like, thought you needed 20%. It's like, no, 20%. You know what I mean? So and obviously there's a whole political and kind of social aura surrounding that, and why we have that idea that we need to have 20%, or why we think that we need this amount of money to purchase a home. And no, just bringing that knowledge, like, no, you don't. No, you don't.
Can you talk to us about deal number 2?
Yeah. So, ironically, that particular deal. So we finished. We got the first deal up and running. It's running itself, and I'm ready for the next one. And ironically, this deal happened to be around the corner from the first deal. So as soon as it came on, and I looked at how close it was, literally set an appointment. So I saw it at, say, 9:30 in the morning. Saw the notice that had came out. Saw the property around 10 a.m. Wrote a contract for it at like 10:30, and then basically had the offer accepted by 2 o'clock.
Wow.
right? And it was right around the corner. We got into the second floor and the third floor. We didn't even see the first floor, and we was like, we'll take it, right? Because I knew it was an amazing deal. And that one had an oil tank, and I knew a lot of people weren't going to go after it because it had an oil tank in the ground, which over here was like a big no-no. And
I never even heard of an oil tank.
yeah, so on the Northeast, obviously as the colonizers needed something to warm their homes with, oil was a standard heating source that people warm their homes up with. It wasn't until over time that they realized, like, oh crap, these big tanks underneath the ground, through corrosion and erosion and things that are now starting to poke holes into this container, oil is now seeping into the land and now contaminating the land. So that's a big, no, at least for, properties here in New Jersey. So anytime somebody sees an oil tank, the seller is supposed to remove it. However, I made the deal and I said, hey, we'll take the property, we'll pay asking price, and we'll basically remove the home inspection contingency. So basically, we were only going to be focused on the big ticket items, one being the oil tank. And I said, we'll pay for you to remove your oil tank. Just if there's anything that's like going on under there, you have to take care of that yourself. He was fine with that because sellers usually take care of it anyway. There was a leak. It wound up costing him maybe about $7,500 to fix, but that would have been on us. But obviously setting up the deal and the terms in that manner. So we closed on it. We're in this deal for about 8 months. And again, this was a situation where it was a 3-family. It had 2 bedrooms on the first floor, 2 bedrooms on the second floor, and 1 bedroom on the third floor. But I knew that I can create an extra bedroom in the first and the second units. So I already had planned. That's how I was going to get my equity off that property. I said, I don't care if the appraisal came in right. That one was at 275. I said, I don't care if the appraisal comes right in at 275. I know I'll be able to add at least 50,000 just from creating 2 extra bedrooms. So again, we're buying in Newark, which, I was claiming it from since I first started in the business. Newark is going to take off. Newark is going to take off. We originally bought the property. When we originally got under contract, the first appraisal that came in, it came in right on the nose, 275. However, we found out that the oil tank was leaking, this and that, blah, 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 slow transaction pace. The deal wound up taking 8 months. So the mortgage company said, hey, 6 months has passed, we need a new appraisal. The new appraisal comes in, and it comes in $100,000 over our current purchase price.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm like, yo, we got to hurry up and close. Like, we got to close now. Let's get it done. And then at one point, the seller was trying to see the appraisal. I'm like, you don't have to see the appraisal. So but we're trying to get the deal done. Luckily, we got it closed. So, we didn't even do anything, and we walked into another 100,000. I couldn't believe it, but I already knew that I was going to add 50,000 on it, and I knew I was buying a home that was like in that particular area was just extremely desirable, and I just played that, and then the fire just lit itself.
Yeah, I like it also because you might not notice this, but your realtor experience just makes you so much more proficient as an investor, in that you said, hey, I wrote the offer and it was accepted. It was accepted at this point in time. When you write offers for a living, you tend to get very good at writing offers that are going to get accepted.
Quick, fast.
So that's dope. I love it.
It's just being in the trenches. Like you learn basically, whether you're in the investment business full time or when you're in properties, when you're talking to people, when you are submitting offers, when you are, you eventually learn what works, what didn't work. How can you get better? What are some ways that you can make your offer stronger? You start thinking like it's but you only get that by messing up or not getting as deals under contract or losing deals for your clients, or like when they really, really wanted the house. And it's like, man, like I got to figure out, especially in competitive markets, you really have to find ways to make your offer stand out. And, it's while I can never give my client an instruction or an order, I would say, okay, well, here's what I would do. And it's really what I would do because I have that experience. So I'm comfortable waiving, home inspections because one, Nobody knows what they're looking at anyway. Like they know when something looks new and they know when something looks old, but you wouldn't be able to tell me why something. Like a home inspector, cool, we have that. We can still do that. I just won't cancel the deal if there's something like small or cosmetic, or if the house is brand new renovated. I'll test it myself. The heat getting hot, is getting hot. If the water pressure is strong, cool. Because you never are gonna know anyway, unless you're the one that either built that house from the ground up or rehabbed it completely. But aside from that, it's things can break all the time. Whatever. That's why you have your reserve coming out of your numbers.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the 3 units to come.
Yes. So this particular property, where hopefully everything goes well. This is in another section in Newark, I would say maybe about 10 minutes away, and that one's a beautiful offer. That one has 2 bedrooms on the first floor, 2 bedrooms on the second floor, and then another 1 bedroom on the third floor. That one is the most expensive price tag. That one is at 4.25. That one's at 4.25. So again, however, we're using our first time homeowner's loan, except we're not using an FHA. We're using 5% conventional, because that's the lender said you have to use 5% conventional. No problem, whatever. But whether it's FHA 3.5% or conventional 5%, they're still just your low down payment options. And that actually was a referral from an agent of mine, a colleague of mine. And so I'm talking with them, and she's like, here's the address, here's, it's a 3-family, da, 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 da. So I'm looking, and I'm like, huh. So I'm like, okay, well, here's what I can do for you. Like, we can put it on the market, or I have someone that might be able to purchase it, and we can get things going right here and there. She was very open to that. And so now that we have those terms verbally, now it's just about working to get the transaction closed. So we'll see what happens, but fingers crossed. But if it's not this one, it's going to be another one, or whatever the case. And then, and then at this point, because we have the equity now, we can, which is a testament to just getting your first deal, because then that opens the door. And now that we have this equity, now we're going to really start playing with it. Just to speed up the accumulation of the rental portfolio. So that was a good deal. That one should bring maybe 12 to 1400, depending on where this, because it's only one furnace, so the owner has to cover everything as far as the utilities, at least on the furnace. But the rents are a lot higher because of the area, so it helps compensate for that. So we'll see what happens.
So you said it's asking price 425.
Mm-hmm.
Is that actually what it's worth? Like the appraised value? That's what it's worth, 425.
Nope. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if it was worth a little bit more. I don't think it's past maybe 450. I don't think there's that much in there or anything like that. But again, it's just okay. What's going in for this particular deal, because it's in a nice area where I expect it just to go up from here. What's the numbers? What's the numbers going in? What's the numbers going out? So I'll run through them. That one's we did another concession, so we're rolling in. So the 425 is all in, $10,000, so technically 415 as the net purchase price to the seller. So with the 425 times the 5% down to about 21,000, 22,000 or so, plus the home inspection fees, things like that, blah blah blah. But again, now I bought the second property, so now it's my wife's terms. So now I'm the acting agent under her, right? So we're gonna get a check off of that, and that I negotiated a pretty solid commission off of that at 3%. So at the 425, we're getting back 12,000. So 12,000 plus by the time I give my broker their split, which is why I'm opening my own brokerage. We want ownership. So we'll talk about that later though. So roughly about 10 grand or so. So you go from 19 to about 10 grand, right? Now, ideally, if we have to close the deal with cash, no problem. But this eventually will be on a line of credit. So I'm going to take a line of credit on this second property that has 100,000 in there. And even with me adding just $10,000, I got a good chunk of equity in there. With me adding $10,000, from that particular property, instead of profiting, say, $1,200, it's now $1,150 or $1,120. But now I've gained an extra $1,200 to $1,300 on the back end, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just using that, and so checks will be written. For
I like
sure.
it.
Yeah.
I like that, and I've never heard anybody mention this, that if you have your license, then every deal that you have, you can always kind of take 3% out of the down payment.
Yeah. Aren't you're producing a ready, willing, and able buyer.
Right.
And
That's amazing.
that's where you get your checks off. Real estate is, I don't know too much about stockbrokers or how the intricacies or anything like that, but real estate is one of the very few fields where you can be the quote unquote technician and get paid to also make your own investments. Like
Right.
it's absurd. It's
Right.
absurd. And these aren't even accounting for like the wholesale deals or like anything like that I've done on the side. And real powerful, like real powerful.
What would you say is your best real estate investing advice?
For newbies or seasoned?
For newbies.
Don't overthink it. Yeah, don't overthink it. It's simple, and you only realize how simple it is once you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
Like it's the law of the first deal. So like before that first deal, it's like la la land. Like it's like this fantasy island of like where only the strong survive and they can only do the deals, and only Max Maxwell is doing deals, and like you will never be able to do deals because you don't know the secret. And like you do your first deal and you're like, oh, that's what, oh, that was okay. And then you see the power of it and you're like, wow, okay, this is like, they were for real. Like with like the passive income, the equity, like, I see what they're talking about. Keep it simple, and, surround yourself with people that are doing it. My entire timeline is just real estate stuff. And, it keeps that into your subconscious. So keep it simple. Keep it real simple. It's all about like it just comes down to the numbers. Like don't worry. You're not in this to get rich off your first deal. Like so many people trying to be right on the first deal or even their second deal. Like this is in flipping, yes, like you gotta hit it right. But even the experience, I mean, we spend so much money to go to college, let's spend the same bread, or let's take the risk. We'll see what happens.
Yep. What's your favorite business book?
Favorite business book. Let me look at my bookcase. Man, that's always a hard question. If I had to, one book that actually stood out to me was Set for Life.
It's a good one.
By Scott Trench. Yeah. The major reason why it stood out to me because it was literally it was the exact opposite of where every like budget book was talking about, or every Dave Ramsey book was talking about, of like cutting out the minor expenses and stuff like that. And then Scott's book just had a different perspective. Like, listen, if you just remove the top 20% that's causing the 80% of the expenses, your life will change immediately. So the moment that we eliminated our rental expenses, oh my goodness, life changed completely. Life changed completely. So now that extra vacation doesn't help you. That extra, whatever the case that you spent, $1,000 on doesn't hurt you.
Right.
And your housing expense first. And for college students, I throw the student loan and car payment in the same territory. And then right after that is eating out. So we've been able to manage the rent, the living expenses. We've been able to manage the car payments by keeping them extremely low. Eating out, we don't have to work on, but again, we don't feel the brunt of that because of our position, and because we're on the move so much. Sometimes it's just easier just to grab something, and that's why we have bonding time and stuff like that. But yeah, man, that is keeping those categories in check will help. Because people tend to forget about the car insurance. Like they forget about the car insurance. Like it's car payment, and it's just like no, it's like you forgot about the insurance and the gas and the tolls and the car washes and the like. Yeah, there's a lot, and the parking tickets and the like random stuff.
Yep. We talk a lot about marriage on my podcast. Can you talk about how marriage has allowed you to thrive in your career and your investing?
I'll tell you exactly what it is for men. For men, focus, straight like that. Like that's it. Like, and it's obviously he who finds a wife finds a good thing and receives favor, but not even but just and that's one of the just kind of core topics where particularly our demographic struggles in. And I thought a book that explained it so damn good was Think and Grow Rich. And it talked about just the energy and the emotion of sex, which can make you obviously do things that you don't want to do or have no business doing or whatever the case. And that's where we lack as far as like that particular discipline, where when us men are probably in our most creative stage, where our brain is developed, where we're in that 27-32, 27-33 range, is also ironically the same amount of time where we also start getting our stuff together. So we're getting more money. We, probably moved up into the nice, apartment, or we probably bought a crib, got the nicer car. We're probably in better social environments, like nicer events and stuff like that. And, some of that energy gets translated into things that they shouldn't be. And I know for me, having a wife just it narrowed down the focus. Like that's it. Like narrowed down the focus, and just having somebody that's in your ear that has their own set of beliefs or their own set of pair of eyes. Like I'm great at putting deals together. The gift of gab. Rounding up the troops and stuff like that. But after that, operation-wise, I am not the smoothest. Like I can get everything in place, but so that's my wife. That's where she comes into play. So the running and managing of the rentals is an operation thing. I can put the deals together or whatever the case, but she'll kick them out if they start acting up. Where I get hard into business, and it's just like that's never the good place. But yeah, just focus and just someone for that backbone. And it's important that your spouse does understand what type of line you're working, like what type of work that you're in, or that you don't have normal hours. Because that's what happens, where you get an opportunity to be on a platform like this, and it's 10 o'clock on the East Coast, on a Sunday. You know what I mean? So it's very important that they understand, because these things will happen. But yeah, just having the backbone, it's important for us kings, and they multiply. Whatever you give them, they multiply. That's
absolutely. Who is somebody that you look up to, and why?
Yeah, so who I look up to? Man, you know what's interesting? This is gonna sound so cliche, it's terrible. So Nipsey, right? Now, I think I found him, I would say around 2010 or so. 2009, 2010. But it resonated with me, and he just gave you, motivation to get on your grind, and that, there's much bigger things that are out there. So yeah, for a while, I was heavy on that, just like using just the lyrics as affirmations, pretty much, you know what I mean? And, again, it sounds so cliche, but, my friends didn't know him when I knew him. I'm pretty sure by the time that I came in, people already knew him. So, it's not about like that or anything like that. But yeah, that was something, of that type of influence. And then you have the people that maybe aren't as that big of a platform, but it's still very dangerous. Then you come into the Jay Morrisons. Then you come into, the individuals that you can learn from. And then under that, the Max Maxwell's, the like, there's, you know, looking up to you as far as like how you run your podcast. Like it's there's so many people that, you know, like I look up to and can learn things from. But yeah, and the answer was cliche as hell.
I think it's dope though, because I mean the podcast and social media is allowing us to have actual role models that should be our role models.
Right,
Where
right,
I saw somebody and he was like, "Hey, I'm actually the Aisha Selden of Louisiana," and I was like, "That is dope. I'd rather
right,
you aspire to be that than aspire to be whatever we were aspiring to be when we were growing up and we didn't know any better."
right, right,
I was watching some football and I was like, when I was young, my goal was to become a professional football player and then after that, become a commentator. And I was like,
right,
that's whack. Like, I don't even want that to be my son's goals. Like, I want us to have actual like goals that really like. I mean, I hate to like. I don't really want to bash sports, but we know the odds aren't in our favor.
right.
So it's like if we can kind of create real more role models that are going to allow people to do things that the odds are in their favor, that they're actually going to be able to make 6 figures, make 7 figures, establish wealth so their kids don't have to struggle, and it's attainable. I'd rather just have more people chasing that as opposed to chasing something where the field's only that small, that big.
Social media is now being able to create celebrities out of people that are actually doing great work and not
Right.
just people who are on the platform of where, you know, a bunch of money can go. So for example, where it used to be TV, radio, and you know, where all the money was, whoever was on those platforms, that's who you looked up to. But now
Right.
we realize that there's a lot more, this eye-opening amount of people that are doing better, if not more, than people that are considered like the major celebrities or the major superstars.
Right.
And you know, the followers, you know, don't mean anything, you know, as far as your impact. But that's the beauty of it. We now been able to locate celebrities that have built that built their brand just off of like great work, and nothing more, nothing less. Not over publicity, not over, just straight up good work and results. That's it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, man.
So the last question is, what sets apart successful investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
Uh, Desire, right? And and reason why I say desire is because it's the formula. The formula is real simple, and then desire is the engine that kind of runs it all. One, and it was crazy. It was also kind of the church sermon, but um, it starts with a thought. Starts with a thought. You put it into words. The words turn into actions. The actions turn into habits. The habits turn into character, and then the character turns into the destiny. The interesting part about it is that, like, put yourself in the environment where that's all they're talking about. Wherever you're looking to do, whatever you're looking to do, surround yourself. Like I can tell everything about you by going to your timeline. That's it. Like it's that simple. Everything that's on your explore page, I can tell everything about like what you're looking for, what you're feeding your subconscious on a daily basis. You know, a lot of mindless scrolling goes. You might as well, or yeah, like a lot of mindless scrolling happens. So when that does, it might as well be stuff that feeds the spirit rather than stuff that's kind of going to take away from that. And um, surround yourself in that environment, because that will, one, you'll have somebody to bounce ideas off of, and two, when you're taking action, you're going to get feedback. So that feedback is going to let you know, hey, you're either doing this right or hey, you're doing this wrong. And then from there, you're going to know, okay, I have to change something. What do I have to change? That's when the individual or your community or your group or your you know your platform, that you can tap into that knowledge and say, hey, listen, it's a lot easier to go to somebody where it's like, hey, listen, I did all this, you know, and I'm trying to figure out how to get here. Like, what, you know, what's your thoughts on this? Rather than, can you teach me how to find my first deal? Or teach me how to find my first deal and I'll give you half the money. And it's just like, I would actually be losing money if I did do that, because I know you're not going to like keep doing that. You just want to be spoon fed. So long story short, just like action, feedback, adjust, repeat, so on and so forth, and do it
Mm-hmm.
until you get the desired results. Um, Now, if you're not getting the desired results, like, you know, that might, you know, there's a whole purpose thing that goes along with it as well, because I've come to learn that when you're in your right field, when you're in that area that you're supposed to be in, things happen a lot easier. That I will say.
I like your story. First, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for making time out of
Thank
your
you for
day late
having
at
me.
night.
Yeah, for sure.
One thing I like about your story is that you didn't let what could have held you back and held you up from preventing from where you are now. And the dope thing is it only sets you up to do even better things. So, like, you're only going to grow. You're only going to do bigger deals. You're only going to allow what you've already accomplished to push you forward into bigger and better stuff. Also, one thing I like about your story is how your profession really allows you to become great at being an investor.
Right.
You, again, you don't realize it. You might, maybe you do,
I
but
don't know. It just seems like another transaction. It's just that now I'm
yeah,
buying it. But
yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised because like someone, even the clients that I'm working with, it's scary for them. And I'm like, what? You don't see this deal? Like if you don't jump on this right now, like home inspection, forget the home inspection. Like it seems like, you know what I mean? Like not trying to mislead them or not, obviously you're not pressuring, but you just know what's there and you want them to get it because secretly they know that they really want the house. And you just
Mhm.
gotta like go get it. Like go
Yeah.
get it. Like the same way that my partner had to do for me. Like go get it. And I had nothing. Like I had just got a check and I had to ship it right back out to go after what I believed and what I knew was going to, be an amazing deal. So sometimes, and the opportunity always comes at the time when you least expect it or when you don't feel like pulling the trigger. That's the hard part.
Yeah.
So,
Dope.
yeah, man.
Where can they find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they support what you have going on?
Yeah, so the podcast itself, Austin Smith Real Estate Podcast. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, the whole YouTube, the whole kit and caboodle. IG, Mr. Austin R. Smith. Come follow the journey. We just getting the wave started. We look up to a lot of people that are doing amazing things, and then it just gives us faith that we can be kind of in the rafters, balling with the big league as well, and more importantly, just start. Just start. You wanted to. You talked about it. Even getting to the next level, doing whatever you got to do to get to the next level. Like just start, put it into play, find out, and yeah, man, that's where you have to find me.
100%. Thank you again,
For sure.
everybody. Please check out our sponsors. We only partner with the best. So, I mean, trade and travel with I'm an investor, Terry Igioma. Super powerful program. You can find that at the link in the show notes. Also, check out Ericka Classic Climb. She's been on the show a few times. You can find her in the show notes. Hood Estate has been rocking with us for a while, and they're launching a new elite program. So check out the Hood Estate's elite program. It's launching very, very soon. The link will be in our bio. Also, 24/7 Watches, 17th Watches, which is just a friend of the podcast. The great thing about media is we get to promote our own companies, man. We don't got to pay somebody else to promote our companies. We promote them ourselves. So also check out the Tide Capital store, gumroad.com/Tide Capital. Every Friday we have a $50 Friday where we put one of our products on discount for $50 as a form of giving back to the community. My name is Charles Oglesby. You can find me on Instagram at Top Millionaire, at Todd Billy on Twitter. The website is www.capitaltide.com. Episode 129. Signing off.